We are very excited. I can tell you, of course, I've never been to Athens, but I probably speak for everybody, but we got here late last night, and I tell you, like, I immediately just loved the place. Like, there's an energy different than, you know, the rest of Europe, like what we've been. And, you know, we went out and we had a great dinner, but there's a vibe about this town, and I'm already loving it. So, we've heard that the Greek audience is, you know, amazing. We've had some amazing audiences, especially in the Balkans, Croatia and Serbia, and we were very surprised. They were nuts. So, we're anticipating.
We've heard rumors that the Greek audience is kind of similar to, you know, Serbia and Croatia, which, like John was saying, they're crazy. I mean, they're really passionate. And as far as me personally, being in Greece for the first time, I was telling the other guys this, but as we're riding on the plane, getting here, I started getting these bumps of adrenaline, this excitement, you know, and just because I was thinking, man, we're headed to Greece. We're going to be in Greece in just, you know, an hour or whatever. So really exciting for me, super exciting, and for the other guys too. Marco is our fill-in drummer, and he's been here before, and he's played here in Athens and also Thessaloniki. So, you know, he's kind of familiar with it, but he filled us in on, you know, the type of crowd to expect, which is supposed to be pretty fantastic.
We love the album. So, and I'm not really exactly sure, like how many albums we've sold, and but you know, I really enjoy. We enjoy playing these songs, and so far the crowd has really been responsive to them. You know, we're doing three songs off the album. It's a long album, but so far, you know, we're really enjoying these songs. I think they're enjoying these songs almost as much as the original songs. You know, they're singing along with them. They fall in line with what Fifth Angel does best, and that's write great songs. That's really, you know, our songs is why we're here.
Tyrant, and that's a favorite for me to play live. It's just a cool kind of vibe, guitar-wise and song-wise, with how it starts out and how it, you know, ends up in the beginning, middle, and end of the song, and it's got a pretty interesting message too as far as tyrants, because they're everywhere in all parts of life, on all levels, in any country, any part. They're always there, it seems like, unfortunately, but and it seems really well received too, as far as the audience and getting into it. So, and you know, this set list is really a mix of old and new. I mean, what brought us here in the first place is the old music, you know, the album number 1, album number 2, and it's just amazing to me to see that people still remember us, you know, they're still into it, and they're traveling from far and wide, you know, to come see us play live, and hopefully more of this to come, you know, next year, the year after, and so on, as we get this figured out, how to, you know, go on the road and tour. Credit really goes to Ken Mary. This is his baby, you know. He came up with the concept, he came up with the treatment, as it's called, with the storyline and all this, and he had all these crazy ideas in his head as far as, you know, different dialogue and a script and the storyline, and also interweaving Easter eggs, as they call it, little nuggets from the past with names of past songs from past records that are interwoven into some of the lyrical content of the new song. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, well, and then obviously it obviously it's a little bit of a departure from the original albums, but you know, we did spend a little bit of time, you know, trying to recreate the past, but we kind of you know, it's just impossible to recreate the past and do what we did when we were in our 20s. And it was a whole different environment, you know, with the writing process, how it was back then, which was more organic. But we didn't have the technology back then, so you know these guys, you know, Ed, Ted, and James would get together in a room and work on the songs. So it was a different process. Now it's impossible to do that because we're all spread out all over the United States, and there's just no physical way to do that. So we've had to use technology in order to create this album. But luckily we have the technology. Otherwise, I mean, we wouldn't even, you know, we had to fly from this city to that city and go to that studio and that. I mean, there's no way it would work.
The technology, I mean, that's really the big thing with this latest album, and really the third secret too, I suppose. But you know, being able to record, everybody has a home studio in their homes, and it's very commonplace these days for all kinds of people to have. All you need is a computer, the right software, and a few other things, and you can get the same high quality recordings that back in the day in the 80s or even 90s, you had to go into an expensive recording studio to get recordings of that caliber. So, I mean, that's part of the technology with being able to do the recording and sending files, you know, through Dropbox or whatever means, large audio, high-quality audio files. And then, again, Ken being kind of the mastermind where he would assemble all the crazy amount of files that we would send him, especially me, because I'd go crazy with too many tracks a lot of times. And he would sort through it and get it figured out. And he's got a very, very nice high-end recording studio in Phoenix, Arizona, a professional studio that has an old analog board. So he would take the digital files and they would, you know, be run through his analog board. And anyway, he did a lot. He really did a lot on this record. I knew Ted, the singer, in high school, and we knew Ken, the drummer, in high school, and we had a cover band in high school. We were in a band together and playing all over Washington State. And through time, that lasted a pretty good amount of time, but we didn't really do much with originals at that point in time. The little bit that we did do was nothing like Fifth Angel, because we hadn't really developed our writing chops yet. So that ended. Ted and I started a project with another guitar player whose name was Mark Von Beck. That was focused on original material, but it was not heavy music. It was more of a, I don't know if I want to call it a poppy type of music, but it was guitar-oriented. That project actually was produced by Floyd Rose, because we were friends with Floyd. Shopped the tape, didn't work. During that whole time, Ted and I would come up with these heavy music ideas that we could not use in that project. And we would just kind of file them away, record them on a cassette, you know, and put them off to the side. Once that project ended, Ted was approached by James Bird. And James wanted Ted to sing on a demo of James's music, which happened to be heavy music and actually pretty similar to what Ted and I had been working on that we had the backlog of. So I remember Ted gave me a call and he said, "You got to hear this demo from James. It's some pretty cool stuff and it really aligns with the stuff that we've been working on that we could not use in that other project. So that was the beginnings of Fifth Angel. So the three of us sat down with our various different music ideas, presented them in a room together like John was referring to, just bouncing ideas off each other. Somebody would react and say, hey, that makes me think of this music idea, and that would make somebody else, just going around, and very, very organic. And that was the beginnings of Fifth Angel music right there. So that's how it started. And it stayed as a three-piece project up until, I guess, the beginnings of the first record. I think so.
Absolutely. They pretty much killed our career. I mean, we were, because we had released Time Will Tell, and it was starting to do very well. We had several songs on the metal charts that were coming up, and then Smells Like Teen Spirit comes out, and then it's like everybody forgot about classic metal, and the record companies all shifted their attention, and that was that. It absolutely. And of course, it wasn't just us. It was many of the bands. Because during the '90s, many of the metal bands that are even bigger, they struggled to even maintain a foothold. But for smaller bands like us, no, we were.
And I think it's important to remember that the music industry, of course, it doesn't really exist much now the way it did as far as the recording industry and music industry, but it's a business, and their business is to sell records, to make money, to keep itself flowing. So if they're seeing something new that's happening where it's just taken off, and it's really starting to sell, and they're seeing that other bands and other product, as they would call it, have declining sales as compared to this other ascending new music, they're going to go with it. They're going to pick the low-bearing fruit, so to speak. They're going to go with kind of the easy money in a way, although they'll reinvest in new bands and new music. But it's like at that point when things were shifting, the heavy metal scene had been around for a while, a good part of the 80s. And so things sometimes just can't last forever as far as being at the pinnacle, being at the top, and then that's when things change and shift. But nowadays, like I said, the music industry doesn't really exist like it used to, but these days, for a band like us, we're a legacy band. We're tapping into what we did in the 80s, and there's a market for it. And we're also, infusing some of the newer types of styles and sounds, like with the Third Secret and also When Angels Kill. But it's a very different world now as far as music is concerned, the industry, and how to survive and make money. It's basically it's playing live, selling merchandise, recording records is really more of a marketing and promotional kind of thing to get people interested to hear something new and see that the band is still active. So that's how it is these days. The ingredients of a good guitar solo. I'm not a lead player in Fifth Angel, although I did do some leads on some songs, but in my opinion, a good guitar solo is like its own musical passage. It's not just a flurry of notes. There's just way too many guitar players in the world that they're amazing, technically amazing, but it's got to be more than that. When I say more, not more notes, but just more thought.
Melody.
Thought put into it, a kind of like a beginning, a middle, of an end, and an end as far as the melodic piece of it, maybe some pauses and phrasing, the selection of notes and how those notes are executed, and how it fits in with the theme of the song. You know, is it going to lift the song? Is it going to drop the song? Is it going to move it along and take it to this more exciting space when the solo ends? So to me, those are attributes and factors in what I think is a good guitar solo. That's my opinion, at least.
I think melody is the most important thing because, you know, just playing a bunch of notes, you know, doesn't do anything. To me, a great solo is a solo where there's a melody that you can remember. And, you know, all of the great guitar players from the past, you know, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, you know, they knew how to compose. So they composed the solos like they composed the song. And there was always a melody, you know, that we can all, oh yes, I recognize that, you know, or Pink Floyd, David Gilmour. That is what to me a great solo.
We don't know yet, but we, you know, doing this tour was almost like an experiment in a way, you know, to see how it goes, to see what kind of reception we would get, to see how we would survive doing it.
We didn't know if 50 people are going to show up, or 5 people, or, you know, 500. We didn't know. So
I'd have to say it's been a success on all levels, as far as the turnout, as far as the enthusiasm from the crowd, as far as us, as far as, you know, being players in the band and doing our piece of things. And I'm actually kind of sad to see it ending. We just have 2 more shows, tonight here in Athens and then tomorrow night in Thessaloniki. And I could keep on going. So, and I think most or not, if not all of us, kind of feel the same. So now we got to kind of put our heads together and see, well, what does this mean for the future? How can we, you know, make this happen in the future, as far as maybe approaching a little different, more of a, we had a fair amount of flying in between gigs. If we could do like more of a driving type of thing where, you know, it makes sense with looking at a map and roadways and getting to this town, that town, and so on. We could play a lot more gigs that way. I mean, it would make a lot more sense financially, as far as, you know, not having to pay for flights and having in quick succession in cities that are not too far away from each other. So we'll see. I guess that's the answer, is we'll see. I can't pick or choose one or the other. Here's my thing. I heard Black Sabbath when I was a teenager, and I totally fell in love with it. This is the original Black Sabbath lineup. The guitar sound, Ozzy's voice, the vibe of the songs, the sort of spooky, dark, you know, darkness of it is fantastic. Now, it was a few years later that I heard Iron Maiden, because they came out a few years later, and I loved it, and I still do. So it's both. I mean, they're both great bands. They're both great influences. So,
you know, I grew up on Black Sabbath. You know, it's one of my first heavy. It was the first heavy music that I listened to, aside from Led Zeppelin, but. And I had bought the first album, second, third, and I think Volume 4 was the last record that I bought. But I mean, I grew up with them. I didn't really listen to Iron Maiden till a number of years later. So it would have to be Black Sabbath for me.
For Black Sabbath.
And we met Ozzy. in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So and I actually cornered him and had a conversation, one-on-one conversation with him for about 5 or 10 minutes. So that was right when he had hired Zach, and Zach was just a skinny little teenager. You know, remember that? It was a epic party. It was a private party in Hollywood.
For me, as far as getting back to the Iron Maiden piece of things, it was Number of the Beast. You know, that record came out and it was just like, oh my God, this is fucking amazing. This is everything. You know, the soaring choruses, anthemic choruses, along with the heavy guitar and you know, the strength and power of the vocals, everything. So it's a different sound, a different vibe than Black Sabbath and Ozzy, but they're both just fantastic for me. So I can't pick and choose one over the other. I mean, they're just awesome, both.